r/ask Reddit. Waiters of Reddit. What ducked up shit have you overheard while waiting tables? Bartending. But here you go. I had my back to two guys who'd just arrived and were about 3 beers in. They start talking about a girl and what they'd do to her. Nothing I haven't heard 1,000 times until this. Bet if we roofied her she'd do all of it, followed by laughter. I just chalk it up to shitty humor until one suggests just dropping it in her next drink. I stepped out of the bar, had my manager call the cops, and kicked them out when the cops got there. Searched and sure as duck they had oxy and roofies on them. The hero we need. And so many poor souls deserved. Party of 5 or 6. It's a group of friends having dinner. In walks a clown. Clown starts randomly walking around the restaurant doing balloon animals for kids and shit like that. I have no idea what the duck is going on. We didn't hire this guy. He walks over to the table of 5 or 6 and selects a man from the table to perform a magic trick for. He did the trick. A small flash of smoke and fire happens and then magically there is an engagement ring on a rope. The man takes the ring and the woman gets on her knees and asks the man to marry her. The man says no, tells her to get up and they continue dinner. This table now has the attention of the entire restaurant, like 300-400 people on our busiest night. Everybody just turned away and started awkwardly eating like nothing happened. I feel like you have to 110% sure they will say yes if you are going to do such a public proposal. I had a summer job at Gilligan's, which is a shitty seafood place around the Charleston area. I see this obese black couple who were actually pretty funny. They reminded me a lot of Chef's parents. Anyways, I bring them their drinks and ask if they're ready to order. I can't remember what the husband ordered, but the wife didn't like it. So he looks at her and says, "Woman, I'll still eat that ass of yours when you eat chili. So don't give me no shit for ordering what I want." She immediately replied, "Harvey, I'ma just need you to shut the hell up." Then they both started laughing. Best table ever. And they tipped me like $20. I mean, if that ain't love. Shucker at an oyster bar here. So other than all the obvious terrible jokes I get, I can say without a doubt the most ducked up thing I've ever heard was a man sitting with a woman who was getting more and more distraught, and the man looks at her and says, "Look, I told you when this whole thing started if I had to choose between you or my wife, I'm picking my wife." Okay, so for all the people on here asking about jokes, I get called a mother shucker at least 4 times a day. But the best, albeit classiest jokes I've heard are, what's the difference between a shucker with epilepsy and a hooker with diarrhea? One shucks between fit and the ducks between shits. My favorite though is, why could you never have an oyster bar in a strip club? Cause you would never be able to tell which one was bad. What's the difference between an epileptic oyster shucker and a hooker with dysentery? One of them shucks between fits. This was over 10 years ago and I had no idea what swinging and wife swapping was. Working breakfast fairly early at a downtown hotel in a big city. Husband is clearly upset and wife is acting half sheepish, half annoyed, and they'd instantly get very quiet whenever anyone approached. Their conversation was clearly heated and the restaurant was pretty empty with high ceilings and marble walls. Old bank, so even slightly raised voices carried. I'm walking towards the table and they didn't see me coming. Husband, how could I not be upset? You let him duck your ass. Why did we even talk about rules if they don't matter? Couples fighting at breakfast on Saturday or Sunday morning after a night of debauchery was always pretty common. But this was the only time I ever heard a fight about unsanctioned ass ducking with a third party. So much. Overheard lawyers discussing a Catholic cathedral child molestation case. My favorite was a group of nurses though, pouring waters as one says the sentence, "So I guy came in for an adult circumcision yesterday." Miss the rest of the story. Return with drinks just as she's saying yay. So Grace pulls back the foreskin. Yay. He comes. Never ask a nurse about their day. It was worse than yours. Ex-waiter. I'm walking down a long hallway carrying a tray of food. A kid comes running from a perpendicular hallway and run face first into the wall without putting his hands up. He starts crying. The dad walks behind him very calmly and kneels down and says, "Buddy, you just can't go running into walls." I muffled my immediate laugh with my hand. It brought tears to my eyes. Sound advice there. Although the calmness of the situation maybe implies it's not the first time something like this has happened. This is actually why it was so funny to me. I wondered how the day went. Hey bud, I need you to not sit upside down in the car seat. Buddy, let's not drink motor oil anymore. You chug that mojito like you're gonna chug me when we get back home. Father-son night at Ruby Tuesday. I waited tables for 10 years at this small family-owned restaurant in rural Ohio that had a famous sandwich. It was on a few Food Network shows and stuff like that. A family comes in, mom, dad, 2 little kids. I take their drink orders, and as I am getting the drinks, the dad pulls me aside. Dad, my son is obsessed with Billy Bob Thornton. We told him that Billy Bob comes here and eats from time to time. So could you just play along? Me. Yeah, of course, no problem. I return with the drinks, and the son, who is about 5 years old, starts asking me questions about Billy Bob Thornton. Like what he orders, if he is nice, stuff like that. I make shit up because I want a good tip and don't want to ruin this little kid's life. He is so excited to hear that Billy Bob comes to the same place he is at. I can only imagine other scenarios where Billy Bob Thornton has appeared in this kid's life. You know, Montague, Billy Bob Thornton really loves this dentist. Oh boy. We had a couple who would come in regularly and always asked to be seated in my co-workers section. They were probably in their 60s and were always really affectionate and cute with each other. My co-worker would joke around with them all the time. One day the man came in with a different woman than usual, and my co-worker jokingly told him, you're in trouble. I'm going to tell your wife you were here with another woman. Woman said, excuse me, I am his wife. Who the duck has he been coming here with? Dead awkward silence while she death glares at her extremely uncomfortable looking husband. My co-worker just turned around and walked away. Honestly, he shouldn't have brought them both to the same restaurant where he was a regular. It's just idiotic. Of course, the waiter who always jokes with you is going to come up and joke and probably even ask where the wife is at. So dumb. I was at the bar, not waiting tables, but I have to. The first was a couple that sat down directly in front of where I was washing glasses. This was during the NBA finals, so I thought it was a bit odd they seemed so sad while everyone else was enjoying the game. They spent at least 4 hours there, and from what I was able to hear they were discussing having another kid to fix their relationship. I guess she had cheated on him because she felt empty but didn't want to end their relationship as they already had kids together. The guy was clearly very upset but said he'd support her if this is what she wanted. The other was last week during a huge fundraiser we hosted. A group of 3 or 4 ladies were noticeably uncomfortable, and when I asked if they were okay they told me that one of them had a stalker who constantly shows up at her house, work, etc. and calls her repeatedly. He just showed up to the bar. She had threatened to call the police if he didn't leave her alone. So what did he do? Naturally he bought her a drink as an apology. It's sad that so many people think having a child will magically fix their relationship problems. Unfair to that child too. A girl trying to impress a date by talking about how pharaohs were aliens. She was probably a stoner who watched way too much Ancient Aliens with Action Bronson. Or thought Stargate was a documentary. Had a guy confess to banging his soul sister when I brought their drinks to them. It was an anniversary. I guess he thought it would be the least likely place for her to cause a scene. She caused a scene. Aha. If I break this news to her in public she can't get upset. When I was a waiter, people often pretended that I wasn't there. The stories they told were crazy and personal. One woman at a table of 6 lunching ladies told the story of how her husband was recently prescribed Viagra. He took it like a vitamin 1 pill every morning. He kept having erections at work and didn't understand why. I'd like to see what this man's secretary looks like. This right here. People often misunderstand how Viagra works. It won't give you a boner if you're not aroused. It just makes you more able to get a boner when you want one. Late one night I had this couple who were maybe in their late 30s. The guy looked a little like a roidhead and had a lot of tattoos. Tough looking guy. From the moment they came in, the woman was crying the whole time. Not like a little bit crying, but straight up bawling. She hadn't talked to me the entire time, but the guy was very chatty. He explained to me how he had just found out that he only had a few months left to live and how his His angel was gonna take care of his boy for him and all this shit. Anyway, I felt pretty genuinely bad cause that's a pretty ducked up thing to hear. Then I saw them come in again over a year and a half later, acting totally normal. They didn't remember me, but how do you forget the face of someone that told you they were dying? My theory is that he was abusive and was making up some cover story as to why she was crying that night. Either that or he miraculously survived without looking sickly at all, which in that case good on him. The first thing I thought when reading this was that they were fishing for a free pity meal. I sat at a table of 3, a mom, her daughter, and grandma. After sitting, grandma left to order spaghetti at the Italian place next door. Mom seemed to be having an existential crisis. I asked her what she wanted to drink. I don't know, she said. Can I get you some water? I asked. I don't know. Do you want me to come back later? I'm not sure. The daughter, who was getting impatient, stood up on her chair. Hey, he said, I'll have you know, I want apples. But first I have to get you something to drink. Would you like some water? I want apples. Grandma ate Italian food in silence while mom stared at a menu for an hour and a half and the daughter ate apples. When they finished, mom paid, and they left. She tipped well, considering all they bought was 50 cents worth of apple slices. Too long didn't read. I sat and waited on a living Wes Anderson movie. This is the weirdest thing I've ever heard honestly. I overheard a customer talking about someone coming and being so much fun. I assumed she was pregnant because she seemed to be showing a bit. I decided midway through the dinner to congratulate her on being pregnant. To my horror she said I am not pregnant. I felt horrible. I told my manager who calmed their meals and I hid in the back for the rest of their dinner. Push comes to shove she refused to let the manager comp her meal and left me a $20 tip with a note that said I was kidding, I'm due in July. My mom and I went to a restaurant in a town we were visiting, and we were seated close by a family just sitting down to dinner. As soon as they sat down, the waitress asked if they wanted a drink. Dad and mom ordered wine and son looks at waitress and then blurts out to his parents, I'm gay. Waitress leaves. Parents look at their son and then look at each other. Mom then asks dad what he is thinking of having to eat. Son again exclaims, I'm gay. Parents look at him deadpan and say in unison, we know. Then waitress came and took our orders and I didn't hear what happened next, but they stayed and enjoyed their meal and seemed to be fine with each other. I like to think he's told them that repeatedly every time they go anywhere like that. Kind of like the joke where the guy calls his mom, Mom, now don't freak out, but I'm at the hospital, and she replies, you don't need to call me every time you get to work, because he worked at a hospital. Heard a group of 3 women talking about how each of their 4th/5th whatever many marriages are going and how they treat marrying for money as their career. One of them paid with their newest husband's black Amex card. Woman, smelling the fish that another table had ordered. Oh god, what's that gross fish smell? Man, close your legs. I picked my jaw up off the floor and ran away. She screamed at him and made him apologize to me. Seems to me like he should have apologized to her, but okay. I worked in a nursing home and had a patient who hated bathing. One time when transferring her to her bed she exclaimed, we're having fish for dinner. I work in a pretty big tourist beach town. An older couple comes in one night. Super nice. They were there for a while. Pretty much until close. I come by to ask if they need anything. Actually, my wife and I were talking, and since it's our last night here, we wanted to know if you would be interested in joining us back at our hotel room. I smiled, told them thanks but no thanks, but have a nice rest of your trip. They left me a hefty tip and went on their way. Never hurts to ask. Semicolon. This isn't quite an overheard story, but it's a good one. I waited tables at a college town Ruby Tuesday. One night, we had a bunch of frat guys come in, all sitting at the same table. They ordered food and several beers. Everything started out fine, but after about 20 minutes, they were getting loud and dropping some F-bombs and other things unnecessary in a family restaurant. I could tell several of the other tables were slightly annoyed and a little uncomfortable. So I finally went over the frat guys and reminded them that this was a family restaurant and they were really going to have to tone it down. One of the frat boys stood up, looked me straight in the face and sneered, and if we don't tone it down, what the duck are you gonna do about it? I was not prepared with an answer. But then I heard a voice behind me. I don't know what he's gonna do about it, but if you keep this up, I'm gonna come over there and kick all of your asses. I turn around and there's this giant of man out to enjoy a quiet dinner with his wife. His wife now looks amused at the prospect of her husband wiping the floor with a couple of drunk frat guys. Anyway, frat guys quickly collect their checks, pay and get out. I camped dessert for the couple and it was a great night after all. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.